Did you press go live?
Pharmacist Ben?
Hey, what does it mean this program is for educational purposes only?
You have to talk to Becca about that.
And what is the second sentence? It's not meant to. What is this? What is it? Do you remember
Treat,
what it is?
diagnose, or cure any disease.
Diagnose, or cure. So what the heck are we doing here?
Oh, we're not treating, diagnosing, or curing.
No, we're not treating on the. How can you treat somebody on the computer, on the internet, on the web? You can't treat anybody. We're not diagnosing because your diagnosis doesn't matter. And what's the third thing?
Curing.
No, curing is magic. There's no cure. We are helping people understand how to reverse chronic degenerative disease. So we should put that in that disclaimer. Instead of for educational purposes only, saying we are going to teach you how to reverse chronic degenerative disease. That's what this is all about. We're not treating. That's silly. We're not curing. That's magic. We're not, what was this? Let's treat. What was the second one? Diagnose. Diagnosis is irrelevant.
Or prevent.
Or prevent. Well, do we talk about prevent? Are we allowed to say prevent?
No.
Well, nutrition, I don't know how that got into the mix. But prevention of degenerative disease is the job of your lifestyle. We talk about lifestyle. Since when is it illegal to talk about lifestyle? I mean, yet. Pretty soon it will be because everything's becoming illegal. But for now, we can talk about lifestyle. This is lifestyle. I'm going to say this. This is the most important thing right now, what I'm going to say. Health is not medical. Health is not medical. Health is not medical. Emergencies are medical. Emergencies are medical. If you get hit by a car, you fall off a mountain, a rock hits you on the head, God forbid, there's a million different ways trauma can happen and we can get injured. And thank God we have surgeons. I don't know. Have you ever been to an emergency room, AJ? They're angels in the emergency room. They're saints. They are beautiful, beautiful human beings in that emergency room and in the hospital too. I've worked in a hospital. Wait, you're zipping up?
I'm zipping on that one. Most of them are though. Just like
there's good. New York, I don't know. Maybe New York it gets a little rough sometimes. Probably for the city.
Because they do life-saving work. I'm not disparaging that.
Yeah, and medicine's life-saving, and we're not dissing on medicine. We're not marginalizing medicine. We're saying it's not applied appropriately. We're asking it to do something that it's not equipped to do. Now, in a way, it is their fault because they pretend like they're equipped to do it. They're making money on it, but they're not. A statin drug is not the answer to a bad heart. I don't know how many ways I can say this. A statin drug is not the answer to cardiovascular disease. Diet and exercise and getting off of your cigarettes and alcohol and toxins, that's how you deal, and sugar, that's how you deal with cardiovascular disease. And so we have to get it through our heads because they're going to milk us until there's nothing left of us. And we just voluntarily line up. And keep in mind, once you get lobbying groups and politicians and government and taxes and legalisms involved, human beings are last in line for benefit. And that's really what our health and our food system and for that matter, all of our institutionalized systems are. Ronald Reagan, I wasn't a big Ronald Reagan fan, but he had some funny things he said. One thing he said, the 8 worst words in the English language. I'm here from the government and I'm here to help. Or I'm from the government and I'm here to help. So the worst 6 words in the English language. And that's kind of like how it is. We got to get it through our heads. We can do this, people. And guess what? Me and AJ and Dr. Wallach and Rebecca and all the people at Youngevity are here to help you. And that's why I do this. That's why we do this every Monday. And AJ, God love him, I do it every Monday and every Friday, and I travel around. But AJ does yeoman's work. What you're doing on the internet with the web, it's an AI, brilliant.
Come on, man! You're doing the same thing. You're in New Zealand on one call, and then you're on another podcast with Dave Michaels. And then,
don't get me wrong. Don't get me wrong. I'm not above patting myself on the back here. I am the bomb. I recognize it. I recognize that. But you are too. You are too. You know what? We all are if we're making a difference in the world. Mm-hmm. That's why I love Youngevity so much, because it allows me a platform to make a difference in the world. You know, that's really how I see Youngevity. It's given me the gift of a platform, a stage that I can stand up on top of and help change the world in my own little way. And AJ, in your way. And Becca, who's listening, in your way as well. And all of us at Youngevity, we're taking it seriously. Not everybody is taking it seriously. I mean, we're just using the products. But people who are really taking the business seriously are trying to make an impact in the world. And that's why, to me, that's the greatest thing Youngevity gives people like us, is an opportunity to to leave our imprint on the world to make it a better place. And if you're not doing that, what are we on earth for? What are we here for a short 80 years, 90 years? Just take up space, take up air? I don't believe that. I believe that we're here to make a difference, a positive difference, and Youngevity gives us an opportunity, gives everybody an opportunity to do that.
I'm so thrilled that I'm able to be with positive people, and I'm really glad I found a place to put my talents, or whatever you want to call them, or my passion, with a group of positive people, in the sense of, like, as you mentioned, looking to do something for someone besides just themselves. And that is what I found here. And I'm really glad about it. So,
and that goes under the radar. You know, we don't really talk about that when we talk about the benefits of Youngevity, a distribution. You know, a distribution, being a distributor, not only do you make money, not only can you be an entrepreneur and express yourself and not have to work for somebody else and be in a cubicle or a restaurant, or, you know, some standard way most people make a living. And not only can you write off your home office and your stamps and your pens and your paper and your rent and your, you know, whatever, your mileage, but you are making people better. You're helping people understand how their body works. So you're making them better. You know, in my skincare company, you know, I have my skincare business, Truth in Health, truthtreatments.com. We have you know what our mission statement is? Our mission statement is every interaction you have with the truth makes you better. Whether it's talking to customer service, whether it's using our products, whether it's listening to me on a podcast, likewise with Youngevity, and likewise with our lives. Every interaction I have, anybody has with AJ, should make them better, or Ben, or anybody else. What if we all went through life like that, with our personal mission statement, right? Our personal mission statement. And by the way, we should all have a personal mission statement. And if you're a distributor in the business, you should have a business mission statement as well. And my personal mission statement is just that. I want the world to be better because I was in it. And Youngevity gives us that opportunity. Who's typing? Oh, Becca. What is it? It's just the two of us here. Are we talking to ourselves? The three of us?
No, Becca's here, but there are people on Rumble. There are people on Facebook. There are people on the 2 YouTube channels and on Twitter. But it's just the fact that we're not on our standard YouTube channel, because I played a video that Dr. Wallach did, and he must have said, you know what, I kind of knew not to play that particular video, because it said colloidal minerals. So whenever you say that the COLL, they think you're talking about I'm trying to think of the atomic letters for silver, but at any rate, they think you're talking about silver, and colloidal silver is the most demonized thing in the world. But if you say colloidal minerals, it's in the same category. as if they think it's poison. If you tell someone to ingest colloidal minerals.
So what is, here, that's interesting because we talk about colloidal minerals all the time. We say plant-derived colloidal minerals, right?
But you say plant-derived most often.
Okay,
so they don't associate the word colloidal. When the algorithm sees the word colloidal,
it jumps to silver
and flags
it. Okay, gotcha. Well, if you put plant-derived, will it still do that? If you put plant-derived first?
Not now. Not so far.
You should always put plant-derived first because there's no plant-derived. Colloidal silver is not plant-derived. Colloidal silver is a fabricated product, synthetic product. But colloidal minerals are very interesting because I'm not going to pick on you, but I'm going to use you as an example. I'm not going to pick on you, but I'm going to use you as an example. You say the word colloidal minerals, but what does colloidal mean and what does minerals mean?
Colloidal means that they are in such a small arrangement that your body can absorb them.
Yeah.
I tried to fluff my way through.
All right, what's a mineral?
A mineral is a
I'm not picking on you, but I'm using you as an example.
No, I like how you. Mineral is a compound of different atoms that are in a form.
Don't bullshit a bullshitter.
Okay, wait. So I don't pass. What's the course?
No.
Yes. Okay.
But that's interesting because we say it all the time, but we don't really have a feel for what it is, and that number one deprives of. Who wrote that? Chemistry Fail. Is that Becca? Somebody wrote that. That's pretty funny. So it deprives us of the ability to leverage these things, to take advantage of them appropriately. And it deprives us, or it not deprives us, but it reduces our ability to communicate them and why they're important. So how can you talk about colloidal minerals and why they're important if we don't know what colloidal means? We don't know what minerals mean. First of all, and I think Becca might have put it up there because I've said it before, there's no minerals. It's elements. And the fact that we call them minerals is what accounts for a lot of the problems associated with our lack of understanding. And even nutritionists and dietitians and people who are in the business don't really understand mineral chemistry. Doctors don't understand it. It's really the hardest form of chemistry is so-called mineral chemistry. And that's because it involves quantum physics. In order to really understand mineral chemistry, you got to have a basic understanding of electrons and protons and basically subatomic particles. And nobody really does. So, it makes it very difficult to leverage or take advantage of it from a nutritional standpoint because it's physics.
There's no minerals?
Google minerals right now. Let's see what the definition of a mineral is.
Naturally occurring inorganic solid with a definite chemical composition and ordered in a...
I started right there. You just stop right there. With a definite... What were the two words?
Chemical composition.
Correct. Chemical composition means it's a bunch of things. It's a chemical composition. A mineral is a chemical composition. The nutrients that we talk about that the body uses, the calcium, the iron, the boron, the chromium, the selenium, the zinc, the carbon, the hydrogen, all of these things, they're not minerals. A mineral is a chemical composition. Iodine is not a chemical composition. Iodine's an element.
Okay, wait a second. So you're saying that there's no Pharmacist Ben. He's just a chemical composition.
I don't know. I'm not understanding how you came up with that one, but let me rephrase it. An element is a letter. A mineral is a word. The body doesn't use words. It uses letters. And it makes its own words. The only minerals in the body are in your skeletal system. And a case could be made for electrolytes, possibly, but for the most part, you're dealing with individual letters off the period. You've seen the periodic table, right?
Absolutely.
There's no minerals on the periodic table. It's elements, atoms. A mineral is made up of a bunch of elements, a bunch of atoms. That's not what is in the body. What's in the body are these individual units. And the reason this is important to understand is because if you can work with these individual components, you can understand why some are toxic and why some aren't. And this is why some people say, oh my God, there's aluminum in there. There's arsenic in there, because they don't understand that there's electronic configurations of arsenic that are completely benign. And there's electronic configurations of arsenic that are deadly. Heavy metals are heavy because they sink. They're heavy. The kind of minerals, the kind of elements we're talking about that get called minerals are complexes that are surrounded with organic material. They're colloidal iodine, colloidal selenium, colloidal zinc. They're these elements that are surrounded with plant compounds, plant substances, organic material. Organic material means the stuff plants make. So what happens is, let me just tell you how this all happens. It's very fascinating, and it's also very instructive. It'll help us understand these things. So the earth is a rock. And on top of that rock, you have the stuff that keeps us alive. It's responsible for life. Earth is like the moon. What's the difference? Except with one difference. You don't have anything alive on the moon. Earth, you got trees, you got plants, you got animals, you got people, you got all kinds of living stuff on the on Earth, but not on the moon. So what is the difference between the Earth and the moon? The difference between the Earth and the moon is 6 to 12 inches of brown stuff on top of the rock. See, Earth is a rock, like a mineral, like a stone, and the moon is a rock. But the difference is Earth has 6 to 12 inches of topsoil on the top of our rock, and that brings life. So then the question is, what's the topsoil? Now, any farmer knows that the topsoil is really important, right? Topsoil meaning the soil on the top of the rock, right? You with me? You look like you're not.
I'm listening.
So don't you think that topsoil is important? What the heck is that topsoil? That's important stuff. That's what brings all of life on Earth, right? Is the topsoil. So the topsoil should be studied and should not studied, just deified, honored. And it is deified and honored by people who work with dirt. People who understand soil are in awe of it. They worship it because it gives life, right? That's where everything comes from. So what is in the soil? What's in the soil is rocks like the moon that have been magically transformed. There are creatures that live on the top of our rock, our Earth, that can magically transform that rock. They eat the rock. These are microbes. They're bacteria. They're single cell organisms, tiny organisms. They call them, you ready for this? Lithotropes. You know what that means? Lithotropes. Litho is Latin for stone. Trope is Latin for eat. Lithotropes are stone eaters. And these microbes, these lithotropes, eat the rock. And they poop out, they take the rock, which is minerals, like we were just talking about, which is a chemical composition, which is calcium and aluminum and magnesium and phosphorus and silica. And it's all squished together like a bunch of people on the subway, right? On the subway, you're like this. You can't move. You're on the subway, right? You can't move. As soon as the people get off, you have some room to move, right? What these lithotropes do is they eat the rock and they secrete out long strings of atoms. You with me here? Long strings of atoms. They take the calcium and the aluminum and the magnesium and the silica and the phosphorus and all the stuff that's squished together like a bunch of people on the subway, and they spread them out. They turn the rock, which is a chemical composition, into single atoms that are on a string, essentially. Are you with me? And these single atoms that are on the string are of a completely different nature than a bunch of people on the subway. They can have room. They got room to move. They got room to react. You with me?
Yes, sir.
And in chemistry, there is a substance that makes up most of our planet that activates atoms, that makes atoms active. We call this substance the universal solvent because it can interact with things. What is that substance that makes up most of the earth? That's the universal solvent. Water. If you take a rock and put in water, what happens to it?
Dissolve?
It sinks.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Gotcha. Gotcha.
Over maybe 1 billion years or 100 million years, it'll dissolve, or at least it'll weather. But no, it sinks. Why does it sink? Because there's no room for the water to interact, because everything's like a bunch of people on the subway. If you go on a subway and a bunch of people are here and you try to shake somebody's hand, they can't shake your hand because they're like this. You're with me? A rock, everything's squished together. But these long strings of atoms that the lithotrophs convert the rock into now have room. They got space, and they can interact with water. And water is the universal solvent, meaning it's the universal activator from a chemistry perspective. It activates everything. If you take flour and you leave it on your kitchen counter, nothing's going to happen. If you add water, it'll become active. It'll turn to dough. If you take your crackers from your cabinet and you leave them on your counter, nothing's going to happen. But if you add water, it'll turn to mush. It'll dissolve. Water makes things happen. But the water has to have room to interact with the things. Rocks have no room. But the lithotrophs give them room. They eat the rock and they poop out long strings of atoms. Are you with me? You gotta make a face so I know you're understanding.
I'm with you.
Okay, now this is super important because once something interacts with water, it creates an entirely different substance, because now it's not just the substance, it's water plus the substance. It's a new substance. And atoms that are interacting with water are of a completely different nature than atoms that are squished together on the subway in a rock. You with me? Now, it's because there's more. I want to make sure you're with me here. Now, if you take those pooped out atoms that used to be a rock, secreted out atoms that used to be a rock from the lithotrophs, and put them in the water, they'll go into the water. They'll dissolve in the water. They call them ionic minerals. And they'll dissolve in the water. And those minerals will go into the plant that lives in the soil. This is how the soil is made up. The soil contains these strung out, they call them electrolytes, strung out polyelectrolytes that come from a rock. Are you with me? You're looking totally lost. I've got to make sure you're with me. Okay? Good.
I'm with you.
Okay, good. That's important to me. Okay. So these long strings of polyelectrolytes go into the plant. The plant uses them to make vitamins. This is why you may have heard that you need minerals to make vitamins.
You need
because the vitamins, all the chemistry of the plant depends on these minerals. They're not minerals. I call them minerals too. These atoms, these elements. They're not minerals. They're atoms. They're elements. They're not minerals. They go into the plant. The carbon and the selenium and the nickel and the boron and the hydrogen and the nitrogen. All of these things go into the plant. You with me?
Yes.
Now, according to, and the plant needs all of them. The whole periodic table. The plant needs them all. Okay? But it really can get by with NPK. It needs them all to make beautiful, delicious tomatoes, nutritious tomatoes that have all the vitamins. But you can the plant can make do with NPK. NPK is nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. Yeah. It's the most important.
Doc says they need 26 in order to do photosynthesis.
That's just photosynthesis, but they also have to make vitamins and proteins and a bunch of other things. They need way more than 26. 26 maybe just for photosynthesis. NPK is enough just to get them to go. And so farmers today use NPK, but they don't use the other ones that make a whole food, a nutritious food, unless you're an organic farmer. So, and not all farmers are using NPK. My point is that it can get by with NPK, but to make a really healthy plant, it needs to have them all. Okay, now there's more here. As these plants are sucking in the carbon and the hydrogen and the nickel and the boron and the manganese and the magnesium and all these other elements, right? As it's sucking them in, it's complexing them. It's surrounding them with organic material, carbon, and other material. They call it organic material. It's material that makes up life. The elements are inorganic. Anything with carbon is organic. And the plant surrounds these atoms, the manganese, the magnesium, and the nickel and the boron, etc. It surrounds them with organic material. And then when the plant dies, the plant goes back into the soil. And then all that organic material is now available for the next plant. And you get a cycle of plants dying, dumping off their organic material, and then the next generation of plant uses them, they die, blah, 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 blah. Well, around the world, on planet Earth, around the planet, hundreds of millions of years ago, maybe 200 million years ago, maybe more, maybe 300 million years ago, there was a lot of foliage. Earth was this lush place. I was watching this special on the Discovery Channel about a period of time when they had lots of oxygen and insects would get really big. Insects, you know what I'm talking about? And they would have these huge insects, right? And during that period, there was a lot of oxygen. Where was the oxygen coming from? Plants. It was like a jungle planet. And when the plants died, they would, drop down and they would recycle, just like I'm saying. But over the course of hundreds of millions of years is a very long time, right? Lots of these plants, especially in areas of the planet where they were concentrated, would start to pile up, and you have these pockets around the planet, especially as it turns out in Utah and in Wyoming and in Colorado and in New Mexico, this part of the country where I'm in. You have a lot of these pockets that are old, that are the end result of old plants that have died and left behind their minerals. They're colloidal minerals that have been surrounded by the organic material in the plant, and they're ionic minerals that they got from the soil. And what's more, the plants that died off also left behind their vitamins and their phytonutrients. And so you have these pockets around the world, especially in Utah and New Mexico and Wyoming and in a little bit in Colorado probably, where you can go into these areas and scoop out the most incredible nutritional material that is the residual of millions of years of foliage and plants that have died, hundreds of millions of years. You with me?
Yes.
And these powders, these compounds that are in the mines, that are the end result of all these plant material that's been compressed over hundreds of millions of years, is among the most valuable nutritional substances you could ever ingest. And guess what? That's what's in here. That's what's in here. And we talk about the colloidal minerals, but you're getting everything. You're getting vitamins. You're getting amino acids. You're getting fatty acids. You're getting phytonutrients. You're getting ionic minerals. And you're getting colloidal plant-derived minerals. Doc talks about colloidal plant-derived minerals. He focuses on that. But you're getting a lot of that, a lot more of that, all kinds of stuff. And that makes this stuff so exquisitely powerful. And if you've ever wondered, I mean, maybe the average person doesn't wonder, but if you're in the business a little bit, you wonder, how can so many people get such great results from this thing? And I've been doing this now since 1998. So you think you've seen results over the last 10 years. I've been seeing the results for the last 27 years, right? I know you've been longevity for 10 years or 8 years or something, right? 5 years, okay. And Rebecca for 10, right? And how many times have you seen, how many times have you seen, right?
Amazing.
Imagine me.
Not
It's
even
amazing.
Me, yeah.
It's amazing what's in this stuff. Amazing. And almost to the point where people roll their eyes. They think you're blowing smoke. They think it can't be true. You're just selling something, blah, 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 blah. People, I'm telling you, it's crazy the kind of results that we get from this stuff. And, I give it away for free sometimes because I just want people to experience it. And by the way, if you have a relative in a nursing home or a hospital or coming out of surgery, this is the best gift you can give them. Christmas is coming up. Buy a bunch of these. It's way better than a necktie or some Christmas socks or sweater.
Okay, Pharmacist Ben, the biggest, and we do have questions, but the biggest, there's a lot of things that you said that I want to revisit another time, but the biggest pushback I get about Tangy Tangerine, the Mighty 90, is
Yes.
how I'm against something that's a cure for everything. And
Well, then you're against air.
they think,
Then you're against
excuse the
air.
word cure, but they think it's like,
Panacea. They call it a panacea.
yeah.
Okay.
And so I have friends who are pretty thoughtful, and they're like, well, every time somebody says they have a problem,
I'll tell you.
you
I'll
say
tell
you
you.
do this.
Yes, I know.
I'm like,
Well,
well, it's what the body
that's-
needs.
I got you. Is air is the same way. Air is the same way. Air is good for everything too. So obviously without air, you're going to suffer from and when I say without air, without oxygen, you're going to have all kinds of health problems. So oxygen's the same way. There's certain fundamentals that everybody needs, and when you're deficient in them, you're going to end up sick. Right? So that should not be a reach for somebody. But I'm going to call BS on what you just said. You said they're really smart, thoughtful people. I'm going to call BS on that. Because if you're offering them a way to stay healthy and improve longevity and reverse disease, and they're really, like you said, thoughtful and intelligent, they would want to know. They may be skeptical, which is great, and all scientists should be skeptical. I'm skeptical. All scientists should be skeptical. Science is built on skepticism. And I'm not a big fan of skepticism. There was a Greek philosophy called skepticism, and there were people who were skeptics. They questioned everything. Question everything. I'm totally about that. But if you're thoughtful, then you're open. So when you say they're thoughtful and intelligent, if they really were, they'd be open because you're offering them something here that could be potentially, even if they don't believe it, potentially very valuable. I'm sorry.
Well, here's the thing. One of them, who I probably respect the most, uses Tangy Tangerine.
Yeah.
But he's pretty fit. Doesn't necessarily recognize what it's doing. But when we're talking about somebody who's not fit and going through problems, and I say, if they use this and this and this, they'd feel better. It becomes, you always say that.
I know, but look at me. Look at me, AJ. I always say dirty blood. I always say leaky gut. I always say, triangle of disease. I always say that. There's certain found fundamental things. It's called reduction. When you're making something, you like to cook. I know you like to cook, right? You ever reduce something when you're cooking? You get down to its basic components. That's called reduction. That's how, whenever you're trying to solve a problem, you want to reduce it to its most basic elements. When it comes to disease, inflammation is a basic element. The blood is a basic element. The intestine is a basic element. Nutrients are basic elements. Water is a basic element. Oxygen is a basic element. Detoxification, that's not really an element, but detoxification is a basic step. There are certain basics that you can reduce disease and the reversal of disease down to. And so, yes, those are going to be in common. Doc used to get a hard time for talking about gluten all the time. Now, I don't think it's necessary. Doc was very smart, okay? Doc was a brilliant guy, or is a brilliant guy. What he did was, with this whole thing, the whole idea of gluten intolerance, et cetera, is he simplified things because he was talking to people who didn't understand a lot about health. So he simplified it. So gluten is like an icon for a bunch of things that are in plants that people can react to. And the reason this is important is because we have this idea that animal food is really bad for us and plant food is really good for us. That's this idea that's in the culture. That animal food bad, plants good. Well, there's no animal food that anybody's allergic to, but there's lots of plant foods that people are allergic to. In fact, all allergies are to some kind of plant. All food allergies are to some kind of plant. Well, let me
eggs.
Eggs, yeah, eggs and dairy. That's right. So forget that. But there are plant defense molecules, defensive molecules in plants that create reactions that are called intolerances versus allergies. Eggs and dairy, they have allergies, but plants have molecules that you're intolerant to. People aren't allergic to gluten. It's more like an intolerance. And some people do have immune reactions, but for a lot of people, it's an intolerance, meaning it irritates the skin. And then that irritation, it's kind of a subtle difference. They call it a distinction without a difference, but still the point being plants can be a problem. And Doc would talk about gluten, but there were a lot of other things too. And gluten and all of these other things, if you put them in with red blood cells in a susceptible patient, the red blood cells will clump up. They call it, you know what they call that? They call that agglutination. Like the word gluten. That's where the word gluten comes from, and that's where agglutination comes from. Agglutinize means to like glob up. And if you put a drop of certain substances, say something called I forgot what they call it actually. There are certain compounds in oats and in corn that are not gluten. And I forgot
oats is avenin.
Avenin is one of them. Yeah, avenin, and there's one in corn. I forgot the other one. Zein or something. Zein, Z-E-I-N or something like that. Anyway, if you put them in a petri dish with red blood cells in the susceptible person, the red blood cells will agglutinize. They'll glob up. I call that dirty blood. That's the reaction that the blood has to certain things, certain substances. And so we have this notion in our world that plants are somehow benign and animals are somehow good for us, but animal food is good for us, but it's not quite that simple. And Doc was trying to get that across, and that's why he simplified it. Doc simplified things for people, and that's very important to do. So when you talk about, like your friends say, oh, that's good for everything, there are certain things that are good for everybody. There are certain basics to the disease process that everybody has. There is nobody that has a chronic degenerative disease that does not have hypercoagulated blood. Nobody. Take that to the bank. There is nobody, because that's the mechanism. That's how it happens. So what does that tell you? If there's no chronic degenerative disease without hypercoagulated blood, I call it dirty blood, sludgy blood, whatever you want to call it. What does that tell you? That tells you, first of all, that clean the blood and you're going to at least improve your degenerative disease, if not completely reverse it. There's nobody who has hypercoagulated blood that does not have a leaky gut, unless they're injecting. Leaving out the injectors, the only way to have hypercoagulated blood is through something that's getting into the blood. So when your friend says, your thoughtful, intelligent friend says, oh, you're just saying the same thing over and over and over again. Yes, because it's true. And the body breaks down generically. Even though there's 5,000 different diseases, your diagnosis doesn't matter. The only people who care about special diagnoses are specialists, because they make the money on it. That's why. They're the only people who care about it. And there hasn't been one specialist who ever reversed anybody's chronic degenerative disease. They put you on a suppressant.
Pharmacist Ben, I was actually going to do a calculation. We have questions. I was going to do a calculation of all the money that pharma has generated since the 1940s, and just add it up and then just put versus zero cure. It just
right. Versus zero cure. Exactly.
Yeah, it's just amazing. But Pharmacist Ben, you said the word leaky. What is leaky liver?
It's like a leaky gut. The liver has a lot of stuff in it. The liver has all kinds of stuff. And let's just talk about the digestive system here, first of all. So you know how your digestive system works? What happens with the blood after it leaves the intestine?
I'm striking out today, so I'm not going to say I do know. So I'm just going to let you.
Okay. All right. So when you eat a food, it goes into your stomach. It goes into the intestine, and then hopefully, if you're healthy, certain nutrients go into the intestine, and the bad guys go out. But that's not what happens, unfortunately, as we talked about, because you get leaks in the intestine and everything goes into the intestine. And the intestine is like a sewage pit. You don't want to know what's in your intestine after you eat a meal. Okay. It's brown. It looks like vomit. There's vomit in there. Okay. Or it looks like, the stuff that comes out the other end. It's not pretty. You don't want that in your bloodstream. You want your vomit in your bloodstream? You want your poop in your bloodstream? No. Right? I'm being graphic here for a reason. Okay, that's what happens when you have a leaky gut. Bacteria, pieces of food, all kinds of stuff gets into the blood. The blood is the sacred, holiest of spaces. And now you're putting a bunch of poop in there. Not quite, but, pre-poop in there. Okay? Right? That's basically what you're putting in there. And you've got the sacred space. Of course you're going to have a problem. Hello? So this leaky phenomenon is the end result of inflammation. Well, guess what? Well, let me just say this before I say it. Before I tell you that part, let me tell you what happens. Supposed to happen when the blood leaves the intestine. Where do you think the first stop is?
When the blood leaves the intestine,
what's the first stop for the blood when it leaves the intestine?
Liver, gallbladder.
No, the liver. The liver. Why would the liver be the first stop?
Because it's got to purify.
It's got to purify, and also it stores the nutrients. After the liver also stores the amino acids, stores the sugar, all the stuff gets dumped in there. Mm-hmm. So the liver is
kidneys.
Yes, the kidneys are on the way back.
Okay.
The liver is the first stop after the intestine, because it's like immigration. Things have to be vetted through the liver, and the toxins cleared out, and the liver's a purifying stuff. It's immigration. So anyway, the liver has a lot of stuff in it. And the liver, like the intestine, has a wall made of cells, like picture cells like bricks, right? You with me? You get these bricks, and these bricks form the lining. When inflammation occurs, the bricks spread out in the intestine and also the liver. And when the bricks spread out in the intestine, stuff goes into the blood. But when the bricks spread out in the liver, the same thing can happen. The liver is your detoxification organ. So there's toxins in there. There's bacteria in there. There's poisons in there. There's enzymes in there. There's all kinds of things that are in the liver. And that's why when you're sick, what do they test? When they suspect you have a heart problem, or you're just tired, or even just routine testing, they test your liver enzymes. You had your liver enzymes checked? You go to the hospital, that's the first thing they check is your liver enzymes if they suspect something. Why do they check your liver enzymes? What is that about? Liver enzymes are produced in liver cells. When liver cells die, they release their liver enzymes. And if you have high liver enzymes, what does that tell you? Your liver cells are dying. Yes, you have liver disease. And because the liver is responsible for detoxification, especially of alcohol, but also of poisons, and it's also a major center for glucose, for the production of glucose and the storage of glucose, you have a major potential for stuff to leak, for inflammation to occur and stuff to leak into the blood. And that's what leaky liver is.
Pharmacist Ben, I have another question from one of our coaches. It's a little long one. I'd like to know recommendations to tear with 90 to help balance blood sugar.
To tear? Did you say to tear?
She said tear. I don't know if that's
like the word. To pair up with. Did that make sense how I explained leaky liver before you digress here?
Say it again?
Did that make sense how I explained leaky liver?
100%.
Okay, now, I want to say a couple more things real quick. The liver can become leaky from sugar, and that's called metabolic syndrome. It can become leaky from alcohol and the formation of scar tissue and the accumulation of fat. That's called fatty liver and cirrhosis or liver fibrosis. And both of those can be the end result of alcohol. And alcohol and sugar are the two biggest, and drugs are the three biggest issues that we have to deal with when it comes to the liver. And sugar is right up there with alcohol and drugs, especially fructose, by the way, which is particularly problematic. And high fructose corn syrup is how most of us are getting our sweets, or at least a lot of our sweets come from high fructose corn syrup. It's cheap. Okay, go ahead. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
So, yeah,
Yes.
So this, you explain it perfectly, because that's exactly what the person is, a type 2 diabetic dealing with leaky liver, and
Wow.
leaky liver is going to be associated with metabolic syndrome.
Absolutely.
So I hear you, 150%. It's funny though that the person who tried to help them talked about milk thistle and berberine and turmeric and EFAs, and then
You
said,
know, it mean well, I should say, but there's no such thing as a berberine deficiency. And I love berberine, and turmeric is amazing. But really, if you have fatty liver, it's not a berberine problem. Yeah, it's not a berberine problem or a turmeric problem. Those are great, though. I'm a big fan of turmeric and berberine. What was the other one you said? Milk thistle also. No, and Jerusalem artichoke too. No, it's metabolic syndrome. You can't abuse your liver with sugar and with alcohol and toxins and drugs, prescription drugs too, by the way, and also hormones. The liver is susceptible to damage from hormones, estrogen and fake estrogen, and the birth control pill and hormone replacement therapy. So you can't abuse your liver and say, I'm just going to do milk thistle and Jerusalem artichoke or berberine or whatever, turmeric, as great as they are. And everybody should be probably using them. It's going to help. But you still need your healthy blood sugar pack, your Dr. Arias's liver cleanse, your digestive support. And by the way, I did thank you for pointing out I-26 on Coast to Coast, because that did escape me. And I hit myself for that. I slapped myself for forgetting I-26.
You got a lot to remember. Remembering product is not the number one thing you have to do.
I know, but you're right. I love I-26.
So one of the questions, and I am getting a little reverb. Thanks, Becca. One of the questions is, I'd like to know recommendations to pair with the 90 to help balance blood sugar and or blood pressure issues due to it. I had a doc over medicate my thyroid so much it flipped me into AFib. Long road to recover. It definitely impacted by blood sugars in the process, affecting blood pressure.
I'm not understanding the question. Well, let me tell you about blood sugar and blood pressure. Okay. First of all, blood sugar is the fundamental jumping off point to disease. If we lop off the tip of the triangle, which I think we're going to have to do, as we talked about. So the blood sugar system, how the body processes sugar through these incredible little structures called mitochondria, that's the jumping off point to chronic disease. So dealing with blood sugar issues is critical. I call it DYS, glycemia. I don't say diabetes. I say dysglycemia. And anybody out there who's a distributor for longevity, you can say dysglycemia. You can't say diabetes. That is owned and bought and paid for by the medical model. They own that. It's like Kleenex. It's copyrighted. You don't get to say diabetes. Don't say it. Okay? But you can say dysglycemia because that's the biochemistry. Nobody owns the biochemistry. That's like Kleenex and tissues, right? Nobody owns tissues. That's just a thing. Kleenex is a brand name. Diabetes is a brand name. Dysglycemia is the thing. So dysglycemia. Cancer is dysglycemia. Number 2 killer. Heart disease is dysglycemia. Number 1 killer. Diabetes is dysglycemia. Number 3 killer. The number 1, 2, and number 3 killer, not accounting for doctors who make up number 3 or number 4, as I recall. Did you know that? They're the number 3 or number 4.
250,000 medical mistakes.
Right. So not accounting for that. It's cancer, it's heart disease, cancer, and diabetes. They're all dysglycemia. Okay? Autoimmunity, dysglycemia. Dementias, dysglycemia. Movement disorders, dysglycemia. Skin problems, dysglycemia. Everything. Tell your friend, your thoughtful, intelligent friend, sorry, it's dysglycemia. One thing, dysglycemia. Sorry, I can't get around it. It's dysglycemia. Now, behind dysglycemia, typically you have dysbiosis, leaky gut, SIBO, intestinal issues, celiac disease, Crohn's disease, ulcerative colitis, etc. All that. And by the way, when you have an intestinal problem, not only do you have leaky gut, which of course is obviously having poop in your blood is a problem, right? But remember, the intestine is where you absorb your nutrients. So once you have inflammation in the level of the intestine, you're not going to absorb your iron. You're not going to absorb your magnesium. You're not going to absorb your electrolytes. You're not going to absorb your B vitamins. You're going to be malnourished on top of having poop in your blood. Okay, so keep this in mind, that the intestine is also not only the seat of toxicity, it's the seat of absorption or malabsorption. So that's a whole nother thing to keep in mind. By the time you have this leaky gut and metabolic syndrome, you have every single disease. So for this person, if they want to, I find it very unlikely that the thyroid, although it probably didn't help, threw her into, I think she said metabolic syndrome, or she said just diabetes or something. Diabetes is elevated blood sugar. The thyroid can definitely be involved for sure. But for the most part, your blood sugar becomes elevated from two places. One, obviously, food, and two, cortisol, stress hormone. Those are the two main reasons why blood sugar stays elevated: stress hormone and food. So change the way you eat and relax. Now, there's also nutrients that can help the body support that. The most important, it's not really a nutrient, but the most important substance is water. Water dilutes everything. And in combination with water, nutrients, especially key minerals, zinc, magnesium, selenium, sulfur. They're all important, though. I hate isolating them. The B vitamins, vitamin C, they're all important. Water plus nutrients is the best way to nutritionally lower your blood sugar. And guess what that means? Boom. Beyond Tangy Tangerine. This is it. This will lower your blood sugar when you drink it with water. The water alone will do it, but now you have the nutrients that will do it as well. And of course, you can throw in the healthy blood sugar pack. And then, obviously, is, lay off the sugar. And when we say sugar, it's not just sugar. It's fast-burning carbohydrates of all kinds. Potato chips, pizza, pasta, rice, cracker.
Don't enumerate them because you're going to make me hungry.
Okay, I won't enumerate. And by the way, let me tell you a really interesting cause of leaky gut. Fried fats. Yeah. The ones Doc Wallach talked about for years, for decades, really, that he would talk about, the processed oils, they're very inflammatory for the intestine. And, oh, by the way, women who are having estrogen problems are also going to be prone towards leaky gut, because estrogen, not poorly processed estrogen or heavy or excess estrogen, out of balance estrogen, is very inflammatory, particularly for the intestine. So it's not just gluten, it's not just foods, it's not just plant foods or plant molecules. It's also fried fats, processed refined oils. It doesn't even have to be fried. It used to be salad oil at the grocery store is inflammatory. And then the hormone estrogen.
Okay. Thank you very much for that. I just wanted to see if this might not be something that you want to talk about, but there is a young student just turning 16, dealing with developmental coordination, Tourette's, anxiety, ADD, social anxiety.
I get the picture. I totally get that picture. That's kind of a syndrome. And I'm always a little hesitant to work with emotional stuff nutritionally, because I don't want to mislead anybody. If there's emotional issues and there's psychological issues, those should be addressed on that level. And mental health or mental illness, we'll say, is a real thing. And I have several friends who are mentally ill, and it is really tough. It's really, really, really tough. So I don't want to be presenting myself as a psychiatrist or as somebody who's working on that level. But from a nutritional standpoint, there's a lot you can do. For one thing, the B vitamins are very important. Excuse me. Let me backtrack a little bit. Bob Ross, right? Remember Bob Ross? You got a dot in the middle, right? Can you tell what Bob Ross is painting for the dot in the middle? No.
No way.
You got to have triangulation. You got to have data points. You got to have sample points, at least 3, triangulation. The more you have, the better. Mental illness, anxiety issues, all that, that's a dot in the canvas. I need to know about his other systems. Most importantly, what system?
Digestive.
Second most importantly.
Blood sugar.
Exactly. That's what I want to know. That's where I want to work. It turns out there's a major relationship between autism, which is this kid doesn't. It sounds like he's on the autistic spectrum, but she didn't mention autism. Major link between autism and the gut. There's a book, a classic book by Dr. Natasha Campbell, I have here on my reference shelf, one of the best books I have, called Gut and Psychology Syndrome. And it's a relationship between the gut and the psychological health, mental health. So there's a very important relationship between intestinal health and the gut. There's also a very important relationship between dysglycemia and insulin and psychology. I have a book called a textbook called Insulin in Psychiatry. Do you know they used to use insulin therapy for psychiatric patients? What does that tell you? That tells you there's a major insulin blood sugar connection to mental illness. Now I don't know, this guy, she didn't say this guy's mentally ill, but along the same lines, it's a neurological issue. So as with always, digestive system, blood sugar system. We'll call all the digestive health nutrients. It's because the brain regulates the digestive system and the digestive system communicates to the brain, there's a big circle. So when you have a digestive problem that causes a mental health problem, brain problem, that brain problem is going to cause more digestive problems, which is going to cause more brain problems, and you got this vicious spiral. So I can tell you, if all that stuff is true that she said, I can guarantee you 100%, not 99, 100%, this guy has digestive issues, intestinal issues, dysbiosis. Work on that level. And she didn't say anything about blood sugar, but he more than likely has those kinds of problems as well. So work on blood sugar, healthy blood sugar pack, all the digestive support nutrients, do a food diary, elimination diet. The B vitamins, which are especially prone towards leakage when people are eating a lot of junk food and sugar, are extremely important for the brain. Essential fatty acids, which are very deficient, particularly omega-3 essential fatty acids, are very deficient in the typical diet of most kids, most Americans, but especially kids, are also very important for the brain. Vitamin E is found in hardly any foods, even natural foods, not enough anyway, and certainly not in a fast food diet or ultra-processed food-laden diet, is also very important for the brain. So there are certain nutrients like the B vitamins and omega fats and vitamin E that you can take in addition to everything else. But until you work on the digestive system and the blood sugar system, healthy blood sugar pack, do all the blood sugar stuff that we talk about all the time, work on the digestive system, you're not going to get, even with the supplements, you're not going to get the kind of benefits you want, especially considering what we just said earlier, how when you have a gut problem, you don't absorb your nutrients. So this guy's going to be very, very malnourished, and anything you give him is going to help him. I would get him. Is this a person on the phone on the call?
Not presently.
Get him on the BTT to start, small doses, and take it from there.
Okay, couple questions related to what you just said. Can you get too much vitamin E?
No, almost impossible.
Okay, then
you have to swallow the whole. You have to swallow like a huge bottle of it or something.
And then, so just out of curiosity, and pardon me if it sounds like a silly question. Can I, not me, but can a person eat a bucket of fried chicken and then immediately have a gut problem, and then someone else not have a visible problem for a long time? Is it a one leg limit? Like, are you like allowed to have like one wing and then you get
it's a spectrum. It's a spectrum. 0 is the best, 100 is the worst. You could be anywhere in the middle. You get to choose. Anyway, that's the beautiful thing. You get to choose. Free country. You get to choose.
I'm not talking about the amount that a person can consume in what I'm asking is, why is it that I can eat, or someone may be able to eat a bucket of chicken, and someone else, like this 16-year-old kid, hasn't had a life of eating bad food. He's had his life worth, but there are people who go till they're 40 and don't experience any issues, and they've
Are you saying what accounts for the differences in the response, different
the
responses
differences in the
people have?
response, the
Yeah,
difference
there's
in the
all kinds of factors. How much enzymes you're making, for example. Some people are making more, some people are making less. Digestive enzymes. How much detoxification enzymes? Some people are making more detox enzymes, some people are making less. How much other load do you have on the body from another disease or another inflammatory factor? How much, what's the condition of your microbiome? There's what kind of medication you're taking, what kind of water you're drinking. There's a million factors that go into it. There's no way to predict any of that stuff. There's a million factors.
So then Wyoming Annie is saying, what's the perfect diet?
There is no perfect diet. The perfect diet is the perfect diet for you. Well, let me say that. There's no one perfect diet for everybody. There's the perfect diet for you. And the perfect diet, if you want to really simplify it, is as little as possible. Food is the hardest thing that we do on a regular basis. So as little food and as unprocessed as that food can be. Those are the two criteria. As little food as you can eat. Stop. And I'm not saying this, and I always have to, like relieve my guilt for when I say this, because I'm not perfect. So when I talk about all these things, I'm not saying it like I'm Mr. Food Guy. There's these food people that you go on the internet and they're all about eating organic, eating purified food and this and that and the other. I'm not about that. I'm just saying if you're sick, this represents a place where you can really work. And so the perfect diet is the perfect diet for you. If you're sick, that's going to be eliminating certain things. If you just want to know what to do and you're a normal, healthy person, as little food as possible and as simplified as possible. You don't want a lot of working parts to it. And liquefy your foods if possible. That will relieve the burden on your digestive system. Soups, stews, juices, smoothies. In other words, pre-blended foods. When foods are you can't pre-blend everything, obviously, but to the extent that you pre-blend your food, you reduce the load on your digestive system. So, there's no perfect diet for everybody. There's a perfect diet for you, and that involves correcting deficiencies or toxicities, or if you have a health challenge, dealing with that. Or if you're perfectly healthy and you're just starting from scratch, as little as possible and as purified as possible, and try to pre-digest your food as much as possible as well.
That's right. That's right. Everybody on Rumble, all you carnivores, sip your steaks.
Yeah, I don't know if I would blend my steak, but that doesn't sound that good. Do you remember that Saturday Night Live with Bassomatic, where the guy was blending a fish in the blender?
Oh, the Bassomatic?
No, Bassomatic. You remember Bassomatic? You got to Google or YouTube Bassomatic. Saturday Night Live Bassomatic.
Oh, I see.
Well, while you're at it, while you're on Saturday Night Live, YouTube Theodoric of York.
I remember you talking about that guy.
Yeah, Theodoric of York. That's really funny too. He's a doctor. He's a medieval doctor. He's Theodoric of York, medieval doctor.
I will do that.
And also, and Bassomatic.
To wrap up,
yes.
Ben, you talked about topsoil. You talked about the 6 to 12 inches of soil.
Yes.
And then you kind of answered my question when you talked about what happens to a rock when it hits water. And then you also talked about the oxygen coming from these prehistoric plants and how it was more oxygen in the past.
And there's also, by the way, oxygen in the water. The minerals change the nature of the water to make the oxygen more to liberate the oxygen, or make it looser. H2O is oxygen, but you don't really have access to that oxygen. But minerals create an electrical milieu that loosens that oxygen, that makes that oxygen more available. So when you're drinking Beyond Tangy Tangerine water, you're drinking water that has a more readily absorbable source of oxygen to it. Not only that, but also when you blend it, In a blender, you generate electrical charges that restructures and reorganizes the water so it's a coherent system. It has a coherency. It has a structure, an organization that makes it much more valuable. Water is not water is not water. You know, rose is a rose is a rose. No, with water, there's all kinds of different waters. And the waters, what we call H2O, is just one type of water. But in nature and in laboratories and in springs and in plants, you have a different type of water that can be utilized for our health. And one of the types of water that you utilize for your health is mineral water, water that has ionic and colloidal minerals, that has a electrical milieu that lends itself to a liberation of oxygen. They call it OLW, oxygen liberating water.
So in that vein, would you use distilled water with your Tangy Tangerine?
Yes, I always use distilled water with everything, unless I could find really good spring water. If you can find really good spring water, that's probably a good water too. I like distilled because it's pure, and I don't know what's in the springs or anywhere else. So I like distilled, and I get my minerals here. Yes, it's true. Some people say, "Oh, well, you don't get minerals in distilled water." That's true, but you get this. And other people will say it leaches minerals from your bones. That's baloney. If you take a chicken bone, and put it in distilled water, the minerals are not going to come out of the chicken bone. So distilled water is a pure water. It's not perfect, but reverse osmosis is probably as close to perfect as you can get.
Would the distilled water pull things out of your gut?
It will pull toxins out. Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Yes, that it will do. And bacteria, bad bacteria and such.
Well, Pharmacist Ben, you gave us, even though I had computer issues and I started late, you wind up giving us more than our hour, and I'm very appreciative for all that you taught me today.
I'm gonna watch some Raiders.
You didn't watch the Raiders? Geno Smith.
Huh?
Geno Smith.
I'm gonna watch Geno. I like Geno.
Yeah, Geno. Yeah,
he's surprising. Thought he was stiff for a while there, but he surprised me.
Yeah, he's getting better. Getting better by the minute. Speaking of by the minute, thank you, Becca Dukes.
Thank you.
For look at that, bring him back on. Look, hey everybody, there's Becca Dukes.
Becca, look at us. We're like years. That's great. Nice to see you, Becca and AJ. I'm gonna go. Thank you, people.
Thank you, Ben.
We'll see you soon.